Hi, I'm Jerry. I thought I'd do a little video to go over some of the basics of reloading ammunition. I know when I got into it, I used YouTube a lot, went through, looked at a lot of great videos. I appreciate all the input that a lot of the guys on YouTube had for me. It helped me out. Now that I've been doing it a little bit, I thought I'd go through a basics of what you can and can't get into, cost, and actually run through a few rounds of some 9mm. When I did a lot of research, I looked at the different tools available to reload, different presses, different what's available, the cost. The biggest factor I think you have to look at is how much you actually do shooting, how much you're able to get out there to recover your cost on the initial setup for reloading ammunition. I had found that it's a big cost savings to me to reload my handgun rounds. To me, it initially, worked out the cost. Eventually, with the price of ammunition going up and it fluctuates, it came out to be a win for me. Plus, there's also the factor of doing it yourself, knowing you got the quality there, and there's a lot of satisfaction in finishing it up. So I thought I'd talk a little bit about what guns I actually have, and then kind of take you through the equipment, take you through some of the materials needed, and then actually reload a few rounds. So let's go. First, I'd like to talk about a little bit of the guns I have. I've actually got a Draco. Shoots a 7.62 by 3.9. It's a mini AK sorts. Now, when it comes to the handguns, I am actually what they call a wheel gun guy. I like revolvers. Not a big semi-automatic. I've got a Ruger SP 101 357. I found that this is a great gun. The wife is very familiar with it. I got a 12-year-old. We go to the range. He likes it. Able to shoot 38s and 357 Magnums. So that's really one of my favorites. Of course, the big daddy of them all, I've got the Smith & Wesson Magnum 500 hand cannon for sure. Picked that up. Love it. It's been a while since I've been able to get it out there in the range. I've got some new bullets I loaded that I'm dying to get out there and shoot. Then I also have the Beretta Storm 9mm carbine. Great self-defense, home defense gun. Love this thing to death. It comes in a 40 and a 45 caliber. I choose the 9. I just put the red dot on it, and tomorrow we're going to the range. I'm going to check that bad boy out. This gun actually shoots pretty darn accurate right out of the box. So I was kind of excited to get the red dot for it, so I'm looking forward to testing that out tomorrow. So, and that kind of what spurred me. I need to load some 9mm for tomorrow. So I went ahead and started doing that. And of course, the guys always come out, and I load up ammo for them. The one gun I'm missing, I just sold my Taurus Raging Bull 44 Magnum. I plan to replace that. I'm looking at probably a Ruger Alaskan 44 or a Smith & Wesson. I'm not sure yet. Still looking. 44 is my favorite caliber. Love to shoot that. And so let's talk a little bit about really what basic needs of reloading. I thoroughly enjoy this. I think it's a great hobby. I feel real good about doing it. A couple things we'll talk about here. I wanted to show you a few of the rounds. These are my 500s, different bullet sizes. These guys I have yet to get out there. 700 grain. I want to talk about thank Ranger Rick in Alaska. He hand casts these bad dogs. The biggest handgun bullet in the world. Have yet to shoot it. Will tomorrow. So I also got those from Ranger Rick. I got these Hornadies, soft tips, good bullet, and actually got those too. So also have the self-defense rounds. I always keep a series of hollow points for self-defense in each caliber I do. 44s, which don't have a gun for, but I got a lot of ammunition. 357s, my target shots, and 9s, which I'm currently making right now. So we'll go through and we'll do about 10 rounds of that. So I wanted to show you guys some of the ammunition that I'm working with here, show you some of the tools. This actually is for rifle rounds. It helps to trim off the casings so you can get them back to the factory specs. This is actually a big part of reloading. It cleans your casings. I can put a ton of cases in here, like 300-400, and after about 3-4 hours, it brings the cases back to factory shine. So, of course, you always need powder. We'll talk a little bit about that. What I like to do is I'll keep bulk casings for each caliber that I do, and get ready so it's all ready to go. So cases for each round, and then what I like to do is I tend to try to buy bulk bullets. I try to get as many as I can. I buy them in bulk. I look on the internet. I try to find the best deals on different bullets. This actually is 44 Magnum bullets, jacketed. I'll get some 357 cast bullets. It depends on what's on sale. Again, I try to keep a stock of self-defense hollow points that I keep on stock. Here's some bullets I haven't even loaded yet for the 500. These are Barnes Buster, Bone Busters they're called. Talk about some monster bullets there. I've yet to even load those. So, but I try to isolate it down to a target shot round and then a self-defense round for each caliber that I do. So, and then we'll talk about some of these tools here, the basics of what you need, and we'll actually try to go ahead and reload a few rounds of 9s. Once you reload, whether it's 9, 44, 357s, the basics are the same. So let's talk a little bit about equipment. Okay, really, a couple of the basics that one you need is a good workbench, a sturdy workbench that you can mount your press to. Whether you're looking at a progressive press or you're looking at a single stage press, which I went with, and again, it depends on how many rounds you can actually, how much shooting you actually do. If you have 30 acres in your backyard and you're going to sit in your back porch and fire off, 200-300 rounds a week, you may want to go with the progressive press. For me, I ended up with single stage. I looked out there at different kits. Lee has a full kit you can buy for $200-300. That'll give you everything to get going as far as that. Ultimately, I ended up kind of piecing my reloading system up bit by bit, different systems. I ended up going with the Lyman Crusher 2 press. I like that. I like the feel of it. I like the sturdiness of it. It's a good press. It'll last you a lifetime. So, with the press, it actually comes with 2 different primers. When you're reloading, you either have a small or a large primer, whether it be handgun or rifle. They're the same primers. Ultimately, when you get into different primers, you can get into Magnum primers or regular primers. So But ultimately you have a larger, small primer press. And that'll do every primer that you possibly want. So that will come with the press. Of course, whatever round you're doing, you need a good set of dies. Okay. Today we're loading 9s. Okay. I went with the Lee dies. They're carbide dies. They came with the shell holder for the press to fit the caliber that you're looking at. It's a 3 set. You have a decapping, you have a flaring, and then you have a bullet seating die. Lee's got some good dies. It was a good deal, good value for the money. The one upgrade I did was I got the locking nuts that you lock down on the die, so that when you put it into the press and you initially set up for the caliber and the bullet that you're doing, you're good to go. You can't. Once you set it, it's locked and ready to go. So you don't have to reset up every time unless you change the bullet. So we'll talk a little bit about that as well. So go ahead and put that back in. We'll talk a little bit about this. I've got a tray here for my primers that I dump out. You have a couple different ways you can actually prime your casings, and we'll talk about that as well. 2 sets of reloading trays. Okay, it'll give you different size based on the size of the shell that you're reloading. I can do just about any caliber with this tray. I had 2, and I'll tell you why. I can do 50 at a time. I load up my empty shells on one side, and as I'm working, I put the shell into the next tray. That way, if I stop, I get sidetracked, my wife comes in, I get a phone call, I know exactly where I stopped and where I started. And that's very important because it's easy to get distracted and get caught up and go, where did I leave off? You never want to double load a shell. You want to, never want to try to reprime a casing that's primed. So you always want to make sure you're where you're at. I went with the RCBS digital powder measure, so I can get an accurate measurement on how much powder we're putting into the casing. So we'll talk about that too. I went with the RCBS powder charger. I mounted that to my table. It's a great unit. I load my primer based on its specs, and I can change the charge, and I double check how much powder I'm actually putting in and use the scale to double check, test that, and we'll go through that. So let me clear off some of these bullets that left to be finished on the table. One of the first things that you really need is your Bible, okay, or your cookbook on reloading, okay. I have a couple different books. I've got the Hornady reloading book for handgun and cartridge, rifle cartridge. It gives me, really, you got to follow this to the T, okay. It'll give you variations on powder types, bullet grains, how much powder, what type of primer to use for each one. Safety first. Always make sure that you follow this to the T. You can have some fun, you can run some hot loads that gives you the information here, but ultimately don't get crazy and try to overload a casing. Somebody will get hurt, okay? And again, I got Lyman pistol and revolver loading book too. I go back and forth and double check references. Some have different powders in them, so ultimately I try to narrow down my loading to try to use a similar powder, so I'm not having the inventory 8 different powders for 4 different calibers of bullet. I try to stick with the Magnum rounds. It's just my philosophy on what I do. When I'm reloading 44, 357s, so I can use the same powder because I'm doing the Magnums loads. And then ultimately I use, well, like AA number 7 for 9mm. I use that, and that's what we're going to be using today. So I tend to keep my primers and my powder in a dry, cool place inside the house so that it's safe. You don't have to worry. I don't like to leave it out in the garage out here where it gets hot and cool. So, primers. Follow your book. Your book will tell you exactly what primers you need, what to use, and again, it's a strict formula that you stick with. Take some research. It did for me. So, but we'll ultimately go with, we're using the Federal small primer, small pistol primer today for the 9mm. We've got the small primer feed on the Lyman press, ready to go. I choose to load my primers on the press. Some actually do a hand press. I have one. I found it easier just to, once I'm in sync and I got a system going, that to put my primers when I'm decapping or taking out the old primers. I just add the new ones simultaneously. So again, it's just my way of doing things. Everybody does it different. So again, it's best to do your homework, look at all the good YouTube stuff, go out, talk to different manufacturers, go out to your local distributor and talk to them. And ultimately you'll get a feel for what calibers you plan on doing, how you want to do it, the cost effectiveness, the return on your investment. So again, today I'm going to do 9s, whether it's 357s, 44s, it really doesn't matter. It's really about the same thing. So I actually had my warranty book out. I was going through. I've got the setup for the 9mm here. We'll talk a little bit about that. I'm using the AA number 7 powder. I'm doing 115 grain nuts and bolts. I've got another bag of them, 400, that I'm going to use. These are full metal jacket, 115 grain for the 9mm. My casings have been cleaned. I put them through the system, so they're good to go. They need to be resized, and the old primers need to be taken out, and new primers need to be put in. So ultimately, that's your first step. So again, I've got my shells out. I'm going to get ready. I'm going to add in, we're going to do like 10 rounds, keep it simple. Here's where tray comes in handy. I put my tray over there, turn them. I've got my 10 primers that I'll need. Again, I keep my cookbook out, so I know what my formulas are. I already know what primers I'm using, so I'm good to go. I've initially already run about 100 rounds, so I'm set with my dyes, I'm set with my powder. We'll talk as I go. So first step is we're going to take out, we're going to resize, make sure that the casings are put back to factory sizing, and we're going to knock out the old primers. So I've got my die set up with my decapping die. I'm going to take out the old one, put the primer in, brand new primer, case resized. So I'll go ahead and put this finished one in the next tray over so I know it's completed, and I'll continue. As you're going, what you want to look for is make sure your primer's flush with your case. When you start knocking out 50 or 100 of these, I've kind of got a system where I can run my finger across. I feel that it's flush. I feel I've done it. A lot of times you'll have trouble. You'll have a bad primer or a bad case, doesn't fit. You certainly don't want that to go through your gun. My Beretta Storm will actually take just about any ammunition I can put through it. Now my son, he has a Taurus semi-automatic handgun, 9mm, and that gun's a little bit finicky on what type of ammo that goes through. So again, when you're reloading, you got to know your gun and know what it likes and doesn't like. That's part of the reason why I like revolvers, is because they're less finicky as far as ammo. You have the Magnum capabilities of it, and there's an ease factor for your wife and the kids. Again, you want to make sure you go to the range, you train, and go through the safety of all of shooting. Now, when I reuse cases, I do a physical inspection to make sure we don't have cracks, we don't have any dings, anything that would be unsafe to actually reload this. The amount of reload you can get out of a brass case depends. If you're running real hot loads, you're going to get less reloads out of it, and ultimately your case will become weak and cracked, which is not safe. So. Next step is we need to flare our brass to accept a new bullet. So I'm going to change dies. And again, I've already set up, I've locked my nut, I know where it works best. The setup when you get a new caliber and you start off, that's the tough part. That'll take some time. But when you start reloading, it's like anything. It'll take you 20 minutes the first time, it'll take you 5 minutes the next to learn. This particular die will work in a progressive die as well to accept powder after you flare, because that would be the next step. I don't do that in this, but the dies are universal to work in progressive or single stage press. Go ahead and lock that down. And again, we're going to flare to the sides. Run it through. I know this is tough to see, but it flares it off so that the bullet sits in there, and then your final bullet seating die will do a taper crimp after it seats the bullet. With the Magnum round, some will actually do add a fourth die to it and do a roll crimp, which I do. I will do a roll crimp on my Magnum rounds, especially with the 500. It's debatable, a lot of conversations on whether you need it or not. When I first started reloading, I did not. Roll crimp, I had no problems, but I found I get a little more accurate velocity. So again, it's debatable. So we flared our casings. So now the next step actually is we need to add powder to our caliber or our shells. I'm going to go ahead and put my bullet seating and crimping die in. Again, set this die up, I've locked it into place, so I know exactly the total depth of it. So with my, I've gone ahead and calibrated how much powder I'll actually need. I've used my digital scale to triple check that, make sure that I'm feeding each case the same. So I'm getting an accurate powder charge with each casing. Yeah, typically I'll do 50 at a time. Okay, so there we go. We actually now have a charged casing with powder. So we need to get our bullets out that we're currently going to use. We've double checked our bullet. We've looked at our specs. We will use the caliper to double check the dimensions of the finished bullet to make sure. So again, it's stable. So I've got my die set up so that I'm going to seat my bullet and crimp the casing. Go ahead and put it in there. Add my bullet. So now I will just double check that the seating is correct. And that is right on the money where I would like it. Again, I've set it up before I started this video. So I now have a completed bullet. So we'll go ahead and do the other nine. So that flare that we did earlier to accept the bullet, what this die does is it'll seat the bullet to the correct depth, and then it will actually taper, crimp the casing back around the new bullet, so you get a tight fit. So. Again, I find there's gratification. I like coming out to the garage, loading up some rounds. Again, I'm trying to isolate the grain of the bullet, target versus self-defense round, so I don't have too many different types. Because every time you use a different type bullet into the case don't change, but if you when I do my hollow points, I ultimately have to recalibrate for depth seating. And again, your book will actually give you all that information. I can't stress how critical it is to follow that information. You do a lot of reading, you do a lot of YouTube videos, and that ultimately helped me get going. So, like I say, I just want to do a basics on this for anybody who's looking to get into it. It's really a determining factor on how much you're able to shoot, what you want to shoot. And I'll give you, for instance, the Draco shooting the 7.62 by 3.9 round. I cannot cost effectively reload that round. Based on my numbers, it would cost me about 58 cents a round to reload. You're pumping a lot of rounds out of that with a 30 round clip. I could buy that round in bulk for about 17 cents a round. So, how many times I'd have to reload that case to recover my money. So, I don't reload that round. I reload all my handguns because ultimately I get my money back fairly quickly by doing that. My 9s, 357, 44. So, hopefully this helped you look at it, make a decision, and I think, hopefully you enjoy reloading. Thanks for watching.